Every woman has a language she never speaks out loud. It lives in the way she moves, the parts of herself she reveals, and the moment she lets her guard fall, but only around you. Music. And if a woman shows you a specific part of her body, one she protects from everyone else, she wants you inside her deepest walls, inside the version of herself she doesn't show the world. That's not a guess, that's biology. Many women, especially when feelings are still developing, do not immediately express attraction through direct statements. Instead, emotions often emerge through subtle changes in comfort, trust, and openness. Music. The body begins revealing what the heart is still trying to understand. Throughout this discussion, you'll discover several of these quiet signals that often appear when a woman feels emotionally connected to someone. Music. Most people overlook them because they are not obvious. They happen naturally without intention and often without awareness. And what makes them fascinating is that once you begin recognizing them, you start seeing human connection in an entirely different way. The smallest gestures suddenly become meaningful. Music and moments that once seemed ordinary begin telling a much deeper story. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to understand attraction music is assuming that it begins with what someone says. In reality, genuine interest often reveals itself much earlier. Before words become confident enough to express feelings, the body frequently starts offering quiet clues that something important is happening beneath the surface. Music. Imagine you're having a conversation with a woman. The discussion is flowing naturally, and neither of you is thinking about body language. Then, almost without realizing it, she moves her hair away from her neck. The gesture lasts only a second, yet it changes the energy of the interaction in a way that's difficult to explain. Psychologists often point out that certain areas of the body are naturally associated with vulnerability. The neck is one of them. Throughout human history, people have instinctively protected this area because it represents exposure and trust. When someone becomes relaxed around another person, many of those unconscious protective behaviors begin to soften. What makes this fascinating is that such actions are rarely planned. They happen naturally when comfort levels increase. The person performing the gesture may not even realize it occurred. Yet the feeling it creates can be surprisingly powerful because the human brain is exceptionally skilled at detecting subtle signs of safety and connection. This does not automatically mean romantic attraction. Context always matters. But when a woman consistently appears relaxed, open, and comfortable in your presence, these small behaviors can become meaningful pieces of a larger picture. Often, attraction doesn't arrive like a loud announcement. It arrives quietly through comfort, trust, and the gradual lowering of emotional walls that most people spend their lives protecting. As connection grows stronger, the signals often become even more subtle and far more revealing. At this stage, attraction is no longer just about feeling comfortable around someone. It begins showing up through behaviors that naturally draw attention and create a stronger sense of emotional awareness between two people. Picture yourself deep in conversation with a woman who seems completely engaged. The outside world begins to fade into the background. The discussion feels effortless. There are no awkward pauses, no pressure, no need to impress each other. Then, almost absent-mindedly, her hand moves toward her collarbone. She adjusts a necklace that doesn't really need adjusting, or her fingertips lightly brush across that area while she continues speaking. To most people, this looks insignificant, music, but human behavior is often expressed through small actions that carry emotional meaning. When people feel self-aware around someone they care about, they frequently become more conscious of their appearance, their movements, and how they are being perceived. The area around the collarbone sits at an interesting psychological boundary. It is neither completely private nor entirely public. Music. Because of this, gestures directed toward that space often draw attention in a natural, almost unconscious way. Music. What matters most is not the gesture itself. It is the timing. These actions often appear during moments of emotional engagement when a person is feeling especially connected, interested, or invested in the interaction. Once again, no single behavior should ever be viewed as absolute proof of attraction. Human beings are complex, but when these subtle signals repeatedly appear alongside genuine attention, strong eye contact, music, and emotional investment, they can become part of a much larger story that is quietly unfolding between two people. As feelings, music continue to develop, there comes a point where simple comfort begins transforming into something more personal. This is often where many people become confused because the difference between trust and attraction can appear almost invisible from the outside. Yet beneath the surface, they are very different experiences. Music. Trust allows someone to relax around you. Attraction often inspires them to move closer. Imagine sitting beside a woman during a conversation that has gradually become more meaningful. The discussion is no longer focused on surface-level topics. Instead, you're sharing thoughts, experiences, and perspectives that reveal more about who each of you really are. As the interaction deepens, something subtle happens. Her posture softens. Her movements become less guarded. The careful distance people often maintain around strangers begins to disappear. Psychologically, this shift is important because people naturally maintain protective boundaries when they feel uncertain. Those boundaries are not always physical. They can be emotional, conversational, and behavioral. When someone starts lowering those barriers, it often indicates a growing sense of trust and comfort. Researchers who study human relationships consistently find that emotional connection is closely linked to openness. The more secure people feel around someone, the less energy they spend managing every gesture, every word, and every reaction. What makes these moments powerful is their authenticity. They are rarely planned. They emerge naturally when someone feels understood rather than judged. Attraction is not always expressed through dramatic actions. Sometimes it appears through a gradual softening, a quiet willingness to become more visible, more genuine, and more emotionally present with a person who makes them feel safe enough to be themselves. One of the strongest indicators of interest is often the one people notice the least. It doesn't involve dramatic eye contact, obvious flirting, or attention-seeking behavior. In fact, it usually happens so naturally that neither person realizes its significance in the moment. Music. Imagine a group setting where several people are talking at once. Everyone seems engaged in the conversation. Laughter moves around the room. Different voices take turns music speaking. From the surface, it looks like everyone's attention is equally distributed. But if you observe carefully, you'll sometimes notice something interesting. A woman's body often reveals where her attention truly rests. Relationship researchers have long studied body orientation because it frequently communicates intentions more honestly than words. Music. People naturally angle themselves toward what interests them. They turn toward people they enjoy. They position themselves closer to individuals who make them feel emotionally engaged. This doesn't require conscious thought. The brain constantly makes these adjustments automatically. You may notice that even while she's speaking to the group, her feet remain pointed toward one specific music person. Her knees angle in that direction. Her torso subtly follows. When the conversation pauses, her attention naturally returns to that same individual. These are not behaviors most people deliberately choose. They occur because attraction often influences body positioning before it influences spoken communication. Of course, context remains important. One gesture alone proves very little. But when body orientation consistently favors the same person over time, it can become a meaningful clue about where emotional interest is developing. Music. Sometimes the body quietly reveals priorities long before the mind is ready to explain them out loud. As attraction becomes deeper, it often begins showing itself through behaviors that seem completely ordinary on the surface. Yet beneath those everyday movements, there can be an unmistakable sense of awareness, confidence, and connection that changes how two people experience each other. Consider those moments when a woman reaches for something above her, stretches after sitting for a long time, or simply adjusts her posture during a conversation. Most people never think twice about these actions. They appear natural because they are. However, attraction often creates a heightened awareness of presence. People become more conscious of how they carry themselves when someone they value is nearby. Psychologists frequently note that physical attraction and self-confidence are closely connected. When a person feels noticed in a positive way, their posture often changes. They may stand taller, move with greater ease, or display more open body language without consciously deciding to do so. What makes this important is that confidence itself can be a powerful form of communication. Someone who feels comfortable and emotionally secure tends to occupy space differently than someone who feels anxious or disconnected. Their movements become more relaxed, more fluid, and less restricted by self-consciousness. In many cases, attraction is not about a single gesture. It is about an overall shift in energy. A woman who feels drawn to someone often appears more alive, more expressive, and more engaged when that person's music is present. These changes may be subtle, but they matter. They reveal emotional investment, growing comfort, music, and a willingness to be seen more authentically. Sometimes the strongest signs of attraction are not spoken at all. They are reflected in the natural confidence that emerges when someone enjoys being in your presence. There is one aspect of attraction that is often misunderstood because it operates beneath conscious awareness. Many people, music, assume attraction is entirely based on appearance or conversation, but human connection is influenced by something much deeper. It is influenced by how a person feels when they are around someone. Music. Think about a moment when a woman enters a room and immediately seems different around one particular person. Her smile appears more natural, her posture becomes more relaxed. Music, her attention seems to return to that individual again and again, even when other people are present. Music. This is not necessarily something she plans. Human beings are naturally drawn toward environments where they feel emotionally comfortable. We gravitate toward people who make us feel understood, valued, and emotionally safe. One interesting behavior that relationship experts often discuss is how people unconsciously shift their weight and settle into more relaxed positions, music, when they are comfortable around some. Instead of maintaining a guarded stance, they appear at ease. Their movements become smoother, their language more open, and their expressions more genuine. What makes these moments meaningful is not the specific gesture itself. It is the overall pattern. Attraction is rarely communicated through one action. It emerges through a collection of small behaviors that consistently point in the same direction. Music. When someone feels emotionally connected, their guard lowers. Their attention becomes more focused. Their reactions become more authentic. Over time, these subtle changes create an atmosphere that both people can feel, even if neither of them fully understands why. Attraction often begins long before words acknowledge it. It starts in the quiet moments where comfort turns into curiosity, and curiosity slowly grows into something much deeper. As emotional tension grows between two people, there are moments music that pass so quickly, they are almost impossible to notice unless you are fully present. These moments rarely involve grand gestures or obvious declarations. Instead, they appear in tiny expressions that reveal what someone is feeling before they have the courage to put it into words. Imagine being deeply engaged in a conversation with a woman. The discussion flows naturally, and both of you are completely focused on each other. Then, for just a brief second, something changes. Her attention shifts, her expression softens, a fleeting look appears and disappears almost instantly. Music psychologists often describe these as micro-expressions, small emotional reactions that occur before conscious control can fully manage them. Unlike rehearsed behavior, these reactions tend to be genuine because they happen automatically. What music makes them fascinating is that they often reveal emotional interest more accurately than carefully chosen words. A subtle smile that appears when she looks at you, a momentary pause before responding. Music, or an expression that lingers just a fraction longer than expected, can communicate far more than an entire conversation. Music. The key is not to obsess over individual gestures. Attraction cannot be reduced to a checklist. Instead, music pay attention to recurring patterns. When warmth, attention, engagement, and genuine enjoyment consistently appear together, they begin telling a much clearer story. People reveal their emotions in countless small ways every day. Most of those signals are invisible to those who aren't paying attention. But when you learn to recognize them, you start understanding that attraction often speaks through feelings and expressions long before it ever speaks through words. Everything we've explored so far points toward one important truth. Music. Attraction is not usually revealed through a single dramatic moment. It is revealed through consistency, through repeated choices that a person makes, often without realizing they are making them at all. Nowhere is that more visible than in the way people manage personal space. Music. Imagine a crowded environment filled with opportunities to interact with anyone. There are empty seats available, different groups talking, and countless places where someone could position themselves. Yet somehow a particular woman repeatedly ends up near the same person. Not once, not by accident, consistently. Music relationship researchers recognize proximity as one of the strongest indicators of social and emotional preference. People naturally move closer to those they enjoy being around. They seek opportunities for interaction. They reduce distance without consciously planning to do so. What's fascinating is that this behavior often develops gradually. It begins with brief moments of closeness. Over time, those moments become longer and more frequent. Conversations feel easier. Shared space feels more comfortable. The invisible barriers that normally exist between strangers slowly disappear. When someone chooses to remain close, even when they have other options, that choice can carry significant meaning. It suggests comfort, trust, and emotional interest. Of course, proximity alone is never enough to determine attraction. But when it appears alongside genuine attention, active engagement, consistent warmth, and the other signals we've discussed, it becomes part of a much larger pattern. Sometimes the strongest message a person sends is not through what they say. Sometimes it is through where they choose to be and who they choose to be near. As we reach the end of this discussion, it is important to understand something that many people spend years misunderstanding about attraction and relationships. None of these signals should ever be viewed in isolation. Human behavior is complex. A single gesture may mean comfort. A single smile may simply be kindness. A single moment of closeness may be nothing more than circumstance. Music. The real meaning appears when multiple signals consistently show up together over time. When a woman repeatedly seeks your company, pays close attention to what you say, remembers small details about your life, becomes more open around you, and seems genuinely happy in your presence, those patterns begin forming a picture that is much more reliable than any individual behavior alone. But there is something even more important than recognizing attraction. It is recognizing trust. Many people focus on what they can gain from a connection. They look for signs, signals, and clues without considering the emotional courage behind them. Genuine connection is not about decoding someone. It is about understanding them. It is about creating an environment where another person feels safe enough to be authentic. Music. The strongest relationships are not built on techniques, perfect lines, or carefully planned moves. They are built on attention, respect, music, emotional awareness, and genuine understanding. When you learn to notice how someone feels around you rather than simply searching for proof that they like you, everything changes. Music. You become more present, more patient, more emotionally intelligent, and that is what truly creates meaningful relationships. Music. The deepest connections rarely begin with a perfect conversation. They begin with trust, grow through understanding, and become stronger when two people feel seen, valued, and appreciated for who they really are. If you follow this journey from beginning to end, remember this. Attraction may open the door, but understanding is what keeps it open. The people who create the strongest relationships are not the ones who speak the loudest. They are the ones who listen closely enough to understand what is being said, even when no words are spoken at all.